Hi everybody, welcome to Psychology 205. We're going to be talking about ways of knowing today, which is the first lecture. In Module 1, we're going to be learning about the basis of science and how the things that you need to know in order to use science for research. So the first way that we can know things is through tenacity. Tenacity, it means repetitive claims. So if, for example, you see advertisements for McRib through McDonald's all the time, even if you've never had a McRib in your life, if you may still know that they have them there, and if you wanted to get one, you could go to the drive-thru and get a McRib if you wanted. So advertising is a really good example of knowing through tenacity. Think for a second in your own life, what have you seen, what have someone told you over and over again? Have you seen on TV? Have your parents, have your friends told you things over and over again to the point where you just believe that they're true without actually questioning them? That's tenacity. Just think in your life. You probably do that. I do it too. It's one way that we know things. We've got lots of big questions in the world, and well, for example, what's the meaning of life? We can't answer that question with science, but we can maybe use one of these other ways of knowing to answer that question as best we can. Science is only as good as it is, and the other ways of knowing also have their own limitations. So tenacity is limited in the sense that if someone is lying to you over and over again, you may believe something that's true that is not. The same thing with authority, which is the second way that we can know things. This is when someone in authority, who is an expert or some source that we trust, tells us something, or we look it up on the internet or in a textbook that we trust, and we say, okay, so this is an authority, and they're telling me that this is how the brain works, or this is how love happens. So we trust that source, and then we know through the authority of that source. Now, that's a good way of finding things out. It's library research. It's your parents teaching you things. It's your culture teaching you that you shouldn't walk around naked. It's all kinds of good things about authority. But the problem is, of course, if the authority is incorrect or lying on purpose, then you will be incorrect in what you know. So what you know is actually not true if the authority that you have consulted is in fact incorrect. Another way to know things is through reason and logic. I'm not really great at reasoning through things, and a lot of people sort of think that logic is not very logical. But for example, if we're reasoning through the arguments of why something is true, like the following example, then that's an example of logic. So primates are capable of language. Bozo the chimp is a primate. Therefore, Bozo is capable of language. That's the kind of logic that I'm talking about, deductive reasoning. If this is true, then this is also true. And that's a really good way to go about knowing things in your world, especially if you're good at it. But if the premise is wrong, if that first assumption is wrong, and often that's not even testable, so you can't tell if it's right or wrong, then the rest of the logic does not follow, and the rest of it is incorrect as well. So while logic and reasoning are a good way to know things, they have their flaws as well, because if the premise is wrong, then the whole thing is wrong. Empiricism, this seems like one of the best ways to know things, because what empiricism is knowing through direct experience. And it seems like if I can smell, taste, touch, and see this thing, then surely it must be true. It must be true because I'm seeing with my own eyes. I'm experiencing it myself. But think of a couple of examples in your life where maybe your experience is different from someone else's. I was just thinking about roller coasters. I think roller coasters are really fun, but someone else might think that they're really scary. Well, what's true? We can have our own experiences, but they're colored by our own biases. For another example might be that I think Nashville, Tennessee, winter weather is cold. But I'm also from Florida, and I think 60 degrees is chilly. So for me, Nashville is cold because it has about 35-degree winters. Someone from North Dakota, though, or Wisconsin, would probably disagree and laugh at me and say, "Are you kidding? That's nothing." So again, empiricism is a good way to know things. It's a very good way to know things. But we can't always be sure of the accuracy because our own biases, expectations, background, the things that we bring with us, our perceptions, those things influence how we experience the world. So we can't know, again, for sure that way. Belief and intuition, literally, belief is feeling that something is true or knowing that something is true in your heart without having evidence that it is so. So the biggest strength is that it is emotional, and we can feel it very strongly. We can just know that, you know, our partner loves us, or we can know that I don't know something that we know that that God is good, or whatever it is that we know in our hearts, but we have no evidence for that. We have by definition no evidence. So belief, while strong and compelling, is just that. It's a way of knowing that does not have evidence. And then finally, science is one way to know things. It's just one of many of these ways of knowing, and it is a systematic way of studying phenomena that is gained through direct experience or empiricism, right? Observation and experimentation. Now, the thing about science is that it depends on repeatable events. So if an event doesn't happen again, like the creation of the universe, or I don't know, so something like that, you know, why humans came to be the way that we are, then we can't address that question. We can't address questions that are not verifiable because they're not repeatable. We need repetition in science so that we can have multiple observers agree on what they see, because again, one observation may be colored by my own biases, but if everyone agrees that something is true based on careful observation and direct experience and experimentation, etc., if everyone agrees and we do it over and over again, then we can be fairly certain that it's true. And that's the method that we're going to be using in this class to answer certain questions. But the big limitation, of course, is that we cannot answer some of the larger questions, like what is the meaning of life. It just is outside of science's purview. So take a second to think. I mean, some questions are better answered by different ways of knowing. Some are best answered by belief. I think some are best answered by authority. Sometimes it's easier to look it up in the book rather than go out and find out for yourself. But others are better answered by science. So I guess I'm going to ask you, why do you think science and belief, particularly religion, which is a big part of belief, why do you think they often clash? Because they often do, and they don't have to. So just think about that and come to class, and I will see you next time. Thanks.